Pleasure to meet you. It's allegedly Demetria. You can go ahead and put your feet up. Might as well turn up your speakers. Pleasure to meet you. It's allegedly Demetria. You can go ahead and put your feet up. Might as well turn up the speakers. All to the top besides. Then I turn up like a boss. No problem helping the loss. All of the filters be off. Check out a couple reactions. Go get you something to snack with. Back to Demetria the broadcast. Chopping it up on the podcast. Don't forget like and subscribe. You never know who gon' slide. Leave a comment, baby. We been on shit lately. Say whatever's on your mind. Can I have a good time? You already know how it go. Relax and enjoy the show. Pleasure to meet you. It's allegedly Demetria. You can go ahead and put your feet up. Might as well turn up your speakers. Pleasure to meet you. It's allegedly Demetria. You can go ahead and put your feet up. Might as well turn up the speakers. Pleasure to meet you. It's allegedly Demetria. You can go ahead and put your feet up. Might as well turn up your speakers. Pleasure to meet you. It's allegedly Demetria. You can go ahead and put your feet up. Might as well turn up the speakers. Yeah, what's good with y'all? This is another episode of Allegedly Demetria. Allegedly Demetria.
What's up, people?
We are going to check out these reaction videos. Y'all let us know how y'all feel about these lineups we got for y'all. But let's get straight to it. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe though. You know, leave comments, things like that.
Yeah, please do. Let's go. Get it.
Her journey suddenly interrupted. One early winter's morning in 1965, a band traveling home from a gig in Woodstock, New York, had their journey suddenly interrupted by car trouble. Well, this is a tale many of us regular.
What did he say? 1969?
Wow.
65? Let's see, what did he say?
It sure was 1987.
The circumstances. One early winter's morning in 1965, a band traveling home from a gig in Woodstock, New York, had their journey suddenly interrupted by car trouble. Well, this is a tale many of us regular folks can relate to. The circumstances surrounding this incident are noteworthy. The van was carrying one of the most influential musicians of the 20th century, visionary guitarist Jimi Hendrix. With Jimmy were several other members of the band, including Curtis Knight. Now, years later...
You familiar with Jimi Hendrix?
No.
No, I'm just saying like music-wise. You know who he is, right?
I do not.
You don't, Jimi Hendrix, the legendary guitar player?
I do not.
Okay.
Curtis was...
As far as him being a legendary guitar player, as far as like his music, yeah, not him personally, but just as far as his craft, as far as what he's done, yeah, for sure.
Sorry, y'all know.
He a legend. He a legend, no time. He's a forefather, you know what I'm saying, of guitarists, guitar
Really?
players. Like a lot of people, you know how Future be like Jimi Hendrix. That's what he.
I have heard him say that. That's what he's talking about?
That's what he channeling.
That's what.
would share the details of when disaster struck. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, and we were trying to make it back to Manhattan, a drive of more than 100 miles through the worst blizzard I can recall, he would later explain. Now, these driving conditions were treacherous enough, and that was when things would take a turn for the worse. The car was swept into a snowdrift and then stalled. Jimmy, Curtis, and other musicians watched as the driver kept trying to leave, but the wheels only spun in the snow. They were stuck. They sat there helpless as the minutes ticked on by, the temperature dropping steadily, despite the fact that the heater was running full blast. And as the heater ran, everyone in the band began to feel drowsy. Only years later, with the benefit of hindsight, would they realize that the van might have been filling with carbon monoxide. It was a very dangerous situation. At any moment, anyone might pass.
That is a very dangerous
It
situation.
is. I was thinking
Carbon
that before you
monoxide.
said that, like, oh, that gotta be that carbon.
It gotta be the carbon
You
monoxide.
don't play with that.
You do not play with carbon monoxide.
Out and be claimed by the gas or the cold, both of which kept steadily creeping in. But that was when something miraculous happened. According to Curtis, the snow on the road slowly began to glow brighter, and it became apparent that something was descending out of the whirlwind of the blizzard, a tall, pointed structure shaped almost like a cone. The object finally came to rest on the road, no more than 100 feet away. Whatever stupor the cold and the carbon monoxide had placed them in vanished as the entire band, including Jimi Hendrix, noticed this strange sight. Now, the panic was short lived, as what happened next unfolded in mere moments. From somewhere on the side of the craft, a panel slid open, a tall figure effortlessly glided from the landed shape, heading in the direction of the van, melting the snow on the ground as it floated. Now, only seconds later, it was standing on the right-hand side of the vehicle, gazing through the window directly at Jimi Hendrix. The musician and the monster stared at each other. Curtis Knight said that Jimmy seemed to be communicating telepathically with it, whatever it was. Now, as the two held each other's gaze,
Whoa. 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 Yeah, okay.
the other band members noticed something astonishing. The interior of the vehicle rapidly began to warm, allowing them to turn down the heater. Now, at the same time, the snowdrift that the van had become mired in melted away, freeing the tires and allowing them to gain traction on the newly cleared road. Then, just as quickly as the being appeared, it retreats back toward the tall cone in the snow and disappears within. The side hatch slid shut, and the object began a forceful, steady ascent into the sky, just like a rocket on a launch pad, slipping free of all gravity. Everyone in the band was stunned, or as I can imagine in the 60s with everyone doped up on drugs, whoa, dude, that's pretty killer. Maybe not, but their problem.
Ooh. My God. Oh my God.
Bro, you funny.
Probably sober. No one said a word as they continued their journey home, and only years later did Curtis Knight remember the incident. He claimed that the entire band acted as though they had been hypnotized. Jimmy had an interesting reaction, though, when Curtis brought the event up later in conversation. And Curtis said, Jimmy never did talk about what happened. He sort of let me know that the cool thing was not to bring up the subject. It was to be our little secret. In private, Jimi Hendrix appears to have been a bit more forthcoming about his experiences.
He seemed like right, but it seemed like that he's either had that happen to him before. You know what I'm saying? Because like one, he was like, "Okay, all right, our little secret," and then it just seemed like he was too. You know what I'm saying? He was too one with it. Like it was just too nonchalant. Like it was, don't talk about it. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. It happened. But then like for you to be that nonchalant, that couldn't have been your first time. Yeah.
Wasn't his first time.
So like maybe, you know, perhaps he was like in like situations before where like it put him in like situations, you know, and then like something intervened and he already knew. You know what I'm saying? Like how did he know? Okay, like Fo just said he spoke to him directly telepathically. How did he how did he know directly to go to that? He didn't instantly know to speak through his mouth. He didn't panic. He just spoke to him and then things carried on as normal.
That wasn't his first time.
You know, on his first time.
No.
claimed numerous encounters with UFOs and eventually shared what he had come to believe with his girlfriend, Monica Doneman, who was a figure skater and painter from Germany, and would be the only person with Jimmy in the hours preceding his death in 1970. She said this: Jimmy was convinced that in the near future, galacticians from outer space, from another galaxy of great positive power, would come to our planet to help mankind in its struggle with evil. While explaining this, he drew 2 points representing this higher power coming closer and closer towards our galaxy, the Milky Way, finally reaching Earth. He told me that the arrival of the extraterrestrials would bring about a great change on our planet, and that love, peace, and brotherhood among the peoples of the Earth would start to blossom again, just as they did in the ancient civilization of Atlantis. Now, one question from Curtis.
What? Wait a minute.
Straight crack. Oh, the footage. Oh, that beautiful being
Yeah,
footage.
okay.
Curtis Knight's story still lingers. What did this being look like? Now, according to Curtis Knight, Jimi Hendrix got the best look of anyone in the band. He said that Jimmy compared it to kind of like a cross between a feathered creature, maybe like Mothman and an angel. Anyone interested in the paranormal should have their ears perk up at the mention of Mothman. Could this infamous being, sometimes connected to extraterrestrials, sometimes connected to cryptids, have actually appeared to have one of rock and roll's iconic figures? Well, if so, we have to ask whether it was Jimi Hendrix who made that comparison, or Curtis Knight, who drew that distinction years after the sighting. You see, the name Mothman wouldn't be used to describe a large winged humanoid until nearly a year later at the very least. So
But nearly a year later is crazy because, like, okay, we could say that maybe it was myth, the legend, or lore in the background, but like to be public domain a year later is like not coincidental.
No. Whoa.
the term Mothman first emerged during the creature sighting in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which I'm sure many of you are already well familiar with, which unfolded between 1966 and 1967. Now, following a sighting from 2 couples on November 15th, 1966, the entire town, even the entire region of West Virginia, was swept into a mania featuring not only the Mothman itself, but a whole host of accompanying high strangeness, including but not limited to odd lights in the sky, UFO sightings, strange visitors comparable to the Men in Black, and poltergeist phenomena. Now, the aspect of these sightings that received the most coverage in the press, however, was the Mothman himself, named after the second-rate Batman villain killer, Moth. The entity was famous for, well, really 2 things: its large, intense, red glowing eyes, and its massive wingspan, which allowed it to pace cars traveling as fast as 62 miles per hour. Dang. Now, some sightings described it having a head, while others suggested that its head was held low or that it lacked a head entirely. Its eyes set into its wide shoulders. Now, events in Point Pleasant culminated on December 15th, 19...
Or maybe that is the entity of being. It could be it can be transcendental. I mean transcendental. It could be multidimensional. It could be like it could be a multidimensional being. Like so one that phases in and out between this realm and the next. Or it could be like a shadow being. So if that would be the case, that would um equate for why you can't see all of his figures. Such as he's saying, like, they don't know if he has a complete face or not. Because it could be a shadow. You know what I'm saying? Or it could be like in the shadow.
So what is
Man,
what?
multidimensional.
What?
It could be totally multidimensional. Like, because like Sasquatch, they say like Bigfoot and Sasquatch, or like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yetis. They say that they're able to they're on a different dimension. Or let's say like say for instance they're on a fifth. or a 6 or 7, but they're able to like step in and out of our dimension or between, if that makes any sense. So like if that would be so, it would be phasing in and out. So if it's phasing in and out, it wouldn't be a solid or complete because it's not completely here.
Wow.
So that's like a shadow. 'Cause I mean, you
A shadow of what?
67 when 46 people were killed after the Silver Bridge connecting Ohio to West Virginia collapsed into the icy waters of the Ohio River. A fracture only 3 millimeters deep caused the entire structure to come crumbling down, making it the deadliest bridge accident in the United States history. While there is no direct evidence that Mothman was to blame, the timing of the incident, coupled with numerous warnings about an impending disaster, chronicled by researcher John Keel in his 1975 book, The Mothman Prophecies, would cement Mothman's reputation as a sort of harbinger of doom, predicting mass death in the aftermath of its appearance. Now, it is true that at least sometimes tragedy befalls Mothman witnesses, as with the infamous Silver Bridge incident. However, it is often difficult, if not impossible, to prove that the creature has anything to do with these disasters. In fact, one example where Mothman brought bad luck to those who saw it comes to us from the writer and researcher Nick Redfern. According to Nick, an elderly couple approached him in 2001 to share a very unsettling encounter that would unfold in early 1946 in Littlefield, Texas. Now, the couple told Nick that the incident took place at a property that sat on the edge of town. There stood a large old house owned by 2 elderly sisters who had a reputation for being reclusive and eccentric. Over the years, the sisters' house earned a frightening reputation among kids in the neighborhood. They would often tease
which
Yeah.
are summoning, which are summoning,
Yeah.
reclusive
Mm,
and eccentric.
mm,
That's the same word that you remember that movie I was telling you about, Coraline?
mm-hmm.
Her mom used that word to describe the people in the building, but that's the kind of behavior and or kind of time that that building was on. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So that I find that to be kind of interesting that that's the second time that I've heard eccentric um being associated with witchcraft. I mean, yeah, I guess you could say though, but yeah. But what are they summoning over there though? They over there in the cut summoning shit.
and dare each other into prowling about the property, often in the dead of night. Well, late one evening, a group of young thrill seekers decided to patrol the building themselves. We can all see where this is going. Tensions ran high as they crept around the house, unsure of what lay just beyond the next corner. And as they rounded the bend outside, they saw something more horrific than they expected. A pair of massive creatures emerging from the cellar door. What are we in an X-Files episode here, guys? Both of them acted stealthily as they wished their presence to go unnoticed. When they stood, the children said that the beings were immense, each towering over the witnesses around 8 feet tall, beyond what this camera lens could even show.
Whoa. How tall?
8 feet tall.
Yeah.
Now, I find that to be interesting because we heard recently of an incident at a mall.
Mm,
Remember,
mm,
they was roughly that size,
mm,
and people was tripping out and going crazy and whatnot. Allegedly, but yeah,
allegedly.
that I mean, that perhaps with the house was they wasn't the only ones that was on that kind of time, huh? That's crazy.
And sported a pair of enormous leathery wings. Not feathery, leathery. These, like their bodies, were covered in
What's that movie? Cheapest Creepers.
Mm, yeah.
gray, disgusting skin, which provided a sharp contrast to their eyes, which glowed blood red. Now, once the creatures came out of the cellar and stretched, they spun around in the direction of the kids, everyone froze in terror, some screaming, as the beings then took off across the property, half hopping, half running. After gaining enough momentum, both monsters unfurled their wings and took off into the night sky. Now, several of the witnesses added a very odd detail. Well, according to Nick Redfern, they said that the limbs of the creatures looked almost hollow against the background of the full moon that loomed overhead. After the creature's departure, the kids decided it was time to leave the property ASAP. And as they fled, two of them looked back to the house. They claimed that from one of the upper windows, both sisters were glaring down into the yard, grinning maniacally. The fact that they weren't surprised, to the contrary, they seemed pleased. It suggested that they somehow had a connection to
Precisely.
Wow.
Precisely. That they somehow had some type of affiliation, something to do with it.
the two abominations that had emerged from the cellar. Perhaps they were witches that had summoned these demons to do their bidding. It's hard to say. The aftermath of this sighting would unfold over the next several months when a motorist in the area eventually saw something resembling the kid's description of the creatures standing in the middle of the road and sadly moaning. However, that isn't the most unsettling thing to happen in Littlefield, Texas after the 1946 Mothman sighting.
So what you
Moaning.
so what you think about this so far? You know, what's your
Moaning.
like
Moaning.
yeah, like you walk out in the so you walk out and you in the wilderness or you driving past or you just so happen to see this out in wherever you at and it's just in the traffic.
No,
Getting
no.
up out of that.
I'm getting up out of there. Yeah, for sure.
For sure, for
For
sure.
sure. For sure.
Gotta get up out of that.
For sure. For sure.
Alright, this been another episode though, you know, of
Man.
allegedly Demetria. That was kinda crazy though, right?
That was crazy.
This bro info, you know what I'm saying? Y'all wanna go check bro out. You know what I'm saying? I'll go check bro out. Go get you, you know what I'm saying? I ain't even gonna show y'all the whole thing, you know. But go check him out right here. What lurks beneath,
Things that we have been
you
taught
know?
are myths. Things that are just only made for movies.
Check him out, y'all. Make sure y'all check him out. But yeah, leave that comment, you know. Like,
Don't forget to like,
subscribe,
subscribe.
and we'll see y'all.